Well, hello, everybody. Thank you very much for inviting me to this conference. And preparing for this talk, I did some research and I found on the ADCE website this little picture. We are more powerful than we think. That's true. That's what I think, and this is what I would like to talk about. And when I saw this, I thought, well, the whole thing is going into the right direction. And then I found this quote from Steve Varanakis, the curator of this festival. And I said, good, creativity with a conscience is what our industry should be remembered for. Also true. So maybe everything is being said and I should cancel my presentation. But there's one point that worries me a little bit. And this is the approach towards brands. This makes us feel a little bit like we look upwards to the industry and to the big brands, and that communication is a service, and we are a little bit devout, prototyping brands for a new era. I think we have to prototype us. That is, we have to prepare ourselves for a new era, which is starting now with this crisis, where everything is changing and structures are being broken up. So I think it's more about prototyping us for the new next upcoming era. And to understand the problem is, I would like to use the statements of belief of the ADCE Germany, which have been released last year for the new manifesto of ADCE. Excellent creative communication has an idea, is understandable, is convincing, is of perfect craftsmanship, is joyful, useful, must be neither racist or discriminatory. Sounds good, but first of all, I wonder about the idea of religion connected to communication. Believing in something, you could call them statements of faith. And I think this is going a bit too far on the one hand. And on the other hand, there is almost nothing said about the content of our communication. We only talk about how it is made. I've been in many juries and discussed many works of colleagues, and we are all very fascinated by the great idea. But what does idea actually mean? In most cases, it means how do we generate attention? Do we surprise our audience? Does it create applause? It has to be a new idea, or a great idea needs to be new, provocative, ironic, subtle, cool, sexy, something, but it doesn't really connect to what the idea is about. So we dance around this idea as a golden calf, and you get golden nails, black pencils, all kinds of awards for it. And still, we have not questioned what this idea actually should communicate. And this is a problem because we position ourselves as masterminds, as strategic partners for our clients. We claim that we have a vision which we can use for consulting our clients. And I think this needs to be discussed. It needs to be more precise. We need guidelines in terms of content and message. Actually, we need an ethic of communication, because all what we see, all what is happening is not only a product of industry, it is also just as well a product of communication. So the companies and our clients know that. They develop compliance rules. They talk about good governance, good citizenship, sustainability rules. Purpose is the big word. A corporate purpose is formulated everywhere. Actually, we help doing so, but we need to do that for ourselves. So if you look at that, I think that our statements of belief are a little bit thin, if not way too thin, for the task we have to solve and for the responsibility we have. As I said, we talk about the how, but not about the what. And that is, in a way, cheating ourselves. We sort of judge the book by its cover. And that is, why is that so? I think it is because we trapped ourselves into a continuous competition for attention. So, of course, attention in an over-informed society is a value. It makes money. It makes money for our clients and for ourselves. And yes, it's important. We want to live from our work. But by that continuous competition for attention, we become more and more part of the problem rather than the solution. And our audience, the society as a whole, is exhausted from that mechanism. They, fortunately, I must say, people start to reject this full speed and full power way of thinking. They start to understand that there is a connection between the kind of information, the kind of marketing, the kind of values which is transported by this marketing and the problems of our planet. And in Corona sort of enlarges and points out this problem because people learned in very short time that many of these things which seem to be completely necessary and must-haves all of a sudden lose their values. So we have to talk about the risks and side effects of our work. And the first thing is that I think rather than getting louder all the time, we need to rediscover the quiet tones. We need to be careful with the language and with the use of images, and we have to find appropriate words and pictures for the important things. We need to get away from stirring flavor enhancers into everything, adding sugar everywhere and turn up the volume just a little bit more in order to be flashing, blinding, so that people do not even notice what they are consuming. We need to rely on the power of facts rather than effects. So what we actually produce is opium. We call it communication, but it is like a drug. We have to increase the pressure and the amount of opium all the time, and we have gotten to a limit. So to put that into the right proportion, what we talk about, for this opium, what we call communication, just in Germany, we spend 50 billion euros each year. We spend 50 billion euros to create desires, dreams, wishes, ideas, who we want to be and how we want to live. This figure has been researched by Brand 1, which is a cool and renowned German business magazine. So 15 billion euros for communication in Germany. And as Europe has about 10 times more citizens than Germany, you can multiply that to 500 billion euros in Europe each year for all what is connected to communication. And part of this is the digital opium, you could call it, which alone uses 65 billion euros in Europe each year. And we are the ones who use this budget, who have the power, who have the tools. If you look at the skills, the juries, the disciplines in the ADCEs, we have a very wide range of expertise how to communicate something. Actually, we are much better equipped than the churches. They lose their audience. We are much better equipped than the schools. We know better. I mean, of course, we don't have the personal relationship, but we have incredible amount of tools to transport content. And obviously, we are much better in communicating than the politics. And that brings me to the title of this talk, Creativity and Responsibility, a 500 billion euro question. And as I say, there is one other group who is creating visions and dreams about the future, and they are called politicians. But compared to our world, and I'm sure you agree to that, it looks rather pale on their side. I made, to find out what the differences are, I made a little calculation using the 2017 German federal election. In this election, the parties have to be transparent about their investments into their campaigns. AfD invested, the right wings, who shouldn't have any money at all anyway, but they spent 3 million euros. The Liberals, 5 million, the Greens, 5.5, the left, 6.5, the Social Democrats, 24 million, and the Christian Democrats, 30 million. If you think of the ADCE as a party who transports visions and ideas of the future and look at the amount they have, it's 50 billion compared to 73 million of all political parties. So you see the difference in power, and there's a proportion of 1 to 700. Each euro spent to communicate a political idea is opposite to 700 euros spent for marketing, services, products, images, companies, brands, etc. So 1 to 700. And if you see this proportion, it is not surprising how political communication looks. It looks rather ugly, rather poor. It doesn't really reach us. Nobody knows actually a party program. You know, very few people are interested in that and have the patience to read these books. And they don't use, for some reason, all the tools and possibilities we have as communication experts. Just look at the idea of Europe. I mean, in each competition, as a creative idea, the idea of Europe would deserve a Grand Prix. It could be done better, it could be always done better, but it is already pretty good. So why is it that we do not reach the people with this fantastic idea that even countries like Great Britain leave Europe again, or the EU again? So I think it is also because we trained the audience so well in how communication has to look and has to be, that political communication is lost in comparison to that. So of course we are not a party. I mean, fortunately we are not a party, but still we in the brains of the people, all these different channels of communication come together and are compared. And our values and dreams and desires we create for selling things are much, much stronger than the political ideas. Our tools and our skills and our talents come along with responsibility. We have to use these tools more carefully and for the right targets. So what do we do with our power? We are the ones who are able to create visions. But if you Google Zukunft, future, the visions created by people like us look like this. It is blue and technical and cold, and you know, it is a completely overestimation of the meaning of digitalization. We make the whole planet some sort of tech product. We have robots, we have funny architecture, you hardly see any human beings in this future created by people like us. And if you see them, they are already sort of synthesized. It is not real anymore. It is an idea of beauty and perfection that doesn't have to do anything with the life we live in. And opposite, politicians communicate like that. And no wonder people are not so much interested. They don't get anywhere near a nail or a pencil with that kind of communication. So what we are lacking is images that promise a future we want to live in. Images have always transformed visions into longing and helped to turn utopias into reality. 50 years ago, these were technical utopias, but today, what we lack the most of all are social utopias. This is said by Harald Welzer, a very interesting social psychologist. So what I think is we have to be aware of our power of impact, and we have to use it as we are the main force of transporting ideas how we want to live in the future. And we have to be open, and we have to say what we think. We are not devout service providers, and fees are no hush money. We get paid for saying what we think, and we are not paid for keeping our mouths shut. So actually, we have to see ourselves as co-producers, and as products consist for a good part, and sometimes to 100% of communication, we also get the liability for this product. We must be taken liable for what we say and how we say it. And this would be, I mean, if we would accept this liability, this would change our whole industry. And I think this is absolutely necessary. This would be the most disruptive move if we were personally or as a company liable for what we say. Until now, we leave this liability to our customers, and we sort of hide behind the industry, but it doesn't work. It brings us to a point where communication, as we do it, is just as dangerous as CO2, because in a way it equals CO2. The crisis altogether, this time now, 2020, the last 6 months, gave us the chance to reset our role. We have the chance, because in many ways, old structures have been broken and are not continued anymore, which hurts awful, especially the part where I come from, spatial communication, exhibitions, events, fairs, conventions, everything what has to do with people meeting each other has been stopped. Our discipline is unemployed, and our bank accounts just melt. And colleague just said, I lost my profession. So it is very hard at that time to talk about reset, because it's more about survival. But at the same time, we have to think about how we can reposition what we do. So we can use the lockdown, and there's the next one coming up, started on Monday this week. We have to use this lockdown to unlock our fantasy and our idea about our own identity, who we want to be, and how we want to do our job. And we have to turn around the €1 for political responsibility compared to 700 euros for marketing, to 700 euros invested in responsible communication compared to €1 used for whatever. And we have to get away from the ego-guided communication of self-optimization of things you need to have to be a better person, and we have to come to solidarity. And this crisis shows us that social values have gotten much more awareness now. Everybody is talking about solidarity, and we only can fight the virus if we act more social responsible. So you could say social is the new organic. Organic has reached our brains and our stomachs and our bodies, and we understood that nutrition and the way we treat Earth and planet Earth is important, much more important than we thought before. Organic has arrived in our lives. And the next thing that needs to arrive is social. We have to be social and socially responsible in the values we communicate. So to sum it up, communication is nothing for people who say yes to everything, to every product, to every client, to every wish. We have to say no. We have to say no if it's bullshit. And even if we risk some income, but we have to be able to reject bullshit and bullshit products and bullshit campaigns. And we have to have courage. Communication is nothing for cowards. So if we want to get further and be proud of what we do, we have to be communicators for future. And you all, ADCE of Europe, have the potential. You are stronger than the churches and they're stronger than the politicians. You have the potential to communicate what we all know is relevant and necessary for a better future. Thanks for your attention.